November 12th, 1996, 11:47 p.m., Kensington Palace. The lamp in Diana's private study cast amber shadows across the pale blue walls. Outside, London slept, beneath a cold drizzle that tapped rhythmically against the Georgian windows. Inside, her hand trembled as she lifted the cream-colored telephone receiver, the spiral cord coiling like a secret between her fingers and the base. She had waited until the boys were asleep. She had waited until the hallways fell silent, until even the soft footsteps of the night staff had faded into distant memory. She had waited until the palace breathed its midnight rhythm, that peculiar quiet that only ancient buildings, and no, a silence thick with history and secrets. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that this single phone call would become the most haunting piece of evidence in a mystery that would consume her son for decades, that the words she was about to speak would echo through time, reaching William's ears 17 years later in a moment that would shatter everything. He thought he knew about his mother. The number she dialed wasn't written anywhere. She had memorized it weeks ago, digit by digit, repeating it in her mind during official engagements, during charity visits, during the endless hours of sitting in cars between appointments. Then she had burned the paper in the fireplace of her bedroom, watching the flames consume the ink until nothing remained but ash. Her fingers moved across the rotary. Dial, click, spin, 7 times. The line clicked, once, twice. "It's me," she whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself. A pause, then, "I've been waiting." And in that moment, a recording began that would never be found in any official archive. A recording that would vanish into the labyrinth of intelligence files, palace secrets, and surveillance operations that surrounded her every move. A recording that 17 years later would surface in the hands of a dying man who had carried the weight of it like a stone in his chest. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because to understand what Diana said in those 11 minutes, to understand why William was never supposed to hear it, we have to go back to the summer when everything began to unravel. June 14th, 1996, 2:37 p.m., Saint-Tropez. Diana sat alone on the deck of the yacht, watching the Mediterranean stretch endlessly toward the horizon. The water was that impossible shade of blue, turquoise bleeding into sapphire, dancing with light. A gentle breeze carried the scent of salt and sunscreen. The divorce papers had been signed 3 weeks earlier. She was free, legally, officially, irrevocably free, and yet she had never felt more trapped. Mohammed Al-Fayed had been kind enough to offer her and the boys this escape. A week of privacy, of sunshine, of pretending that the world wasn't watching. William and Harry were below deck, their laughter occasionally drifting up through the cabin windows. But even here, thousands of miles from London, she felt the cameras, the lenses hidden in the hills, the telephoto zoom capturing her every moment. "They're watching from the villa on the North Cliff," a voice said beside her. "Telephoto lens, been there since you arrived." Her eyes snapped open. A man stood beside her lounger, holding 2 glasses of Aperol Spritz. He was in his early 50s, with silver hair and an accent that suggested education abroad. "I'm sorry," she said, her training kicking in. "The photographers," he said, gesturing subtly toward the hillside. "North Cliff. Villa with the blue shutters. 3 men. They followed you from the airport." Diana felt her stomach clench. Of course they had. "And you are?" she asked. "Someone who knows what it's like to be watched," he said, offering her one of the drinks. "Someone who knows that even in paradise, you're never really alone." She should have called for security, but something in his eyes stopped her. Not menace, sadness, knowledge. She took the glass. He sat down on the lounger beside hers, not too close, respectful of distance, and looked out at the water. "I used to work for the people who've been watching you since 1981, he said quietly. "MI5, Surveillance Division, Royal Protection Detail, though not the kind that wears uniforms." Diana's hand froze. "I left the service 2 years ago," he continued. "Couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't be part of the machinery." "Why are you telling me this?" Diana asked. He looked at her. His eyes were grey, the color of London rain. Because you deserve to know. Because they've convinced you that you're paranoid, that you're unstable, that the surveillance is all in your head. But it's not. It's real. It's extensive. And it's designed to make you feel exactly the way you feel right now. Watched. Trapped. Crazy. Diana felt tears prick at her eyes. Someone believed her. "They're listening to everything, ma'am," he said softly. "Your phones, your rooms, your cars. Even here they'll find a way. There are no safe spaces. Not for you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded business card. He tucked it into the magazine lying on the table between them. "If you ever need to talk, really talk, there's a number. Use a payphone. Never your personal line. And be careful who you trust." He stood up and walked away, disappearing into the villa. Diana sat frozen. Then slowly she reached for the magazine. Inside was a blank card with a handwritten phone number. She memorized it right there, digit by digit. Then she tore the card into tiny pieces and let the Mediterranean breeze carry them away. That night, she wondered if she'd just been given a lifeline or a rope to hang herself with. August 8th, 1996, 9:12 p.m., St. Pancras Station, Platform 7. Diana wore sunglasses despite the evening hour, a baseball cap pulled low, jeans and a simple jacket, the uniform of anonymity. She'd slipped out through the kitchen entrance, where cameras had conveniently malfunctioned that afternoon. The payphone stood in a corner, partially hidden by a support column. She picked up the receiver and dialed. He answered on the first ring. "I'm here," she said. "Listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you isn't speculation. It's operational fact. I kept copies before I left. Insurance." "Tell me." "Your phones have been tapped since 1989. All of them. Every conversation recorded, transcribed, filed. Thousands of hours." Diana felt the platform tilt beneath her feet. "Your rooms at Kensington Palace have audio surveillance. Living room, study, bedroom. Everywhere except the boys' rooms. Every private conversation. They have it." "Why?" "Initially, protection. But after the Morton book, after you went public, it changed. It became about control, about leverage, about making sure that if you ever became too much of a problem, they could destroy your credibility entirely." "They already think I'm crazy," Diana said bitterly. "That's not an accident. That's a campaign. Every story about your instability, your emotional problems, where do you think those come from? They're strategically leaked, designed to make sure that if you ever say something, they don't want the public to believe. They can point to your history and dismiss it." Diana leaned against the cold metal, feeling dizzy. "Your friends are being monitored. Your staff is reporting back. Your movements are tracked. Your bank accounts are watched. They're building a complete picture, using it to predict your behavior, to stay 3 steps ahead. What do I do?" "You document everything. Keep your own records. Write things down in places they can't access. Build your own evidence. And when the time comes, you tell your truth, all of it, in a way they can't erase." "How?" "I'm working on something, a way to preserve your testimony, something that can't be suppressed. But it will take time. Can you be patient?" Diana thought about William and Harry, about the world she wanted them to grow up in. "Yes," she said. "Good. I'll contact you when it's ready. Don't try to call me." "Wait," Diana said. "Why are you doing this?" A long pause. "Because I have a daughter, 16, and I can't stand the thought of her growing up in a world where a woman like you gets destroyed, just for refusing to stay in her cage. Someone has to fight back." The line went dead. Diana walked back through the station, through crowds who had no idea that a princess had just been standing among them, learning that her worst fears were real. September 19th, 1996, 11:30 a.m., Kensington Palace. William came home from Eton for the weekend, tall and awkward in that way of 14-year-old boys growing faster than they can manage. Diana pulled him into a hug he tolerated with teenage resignation. "Mum, I'm fine," he said, but he hugged her back. They had tea in the drawing room, just the two of them. Harry was at a friend's house. "How's school?" she asked.
"Fine."
"Are you eating enough?" "Mum."
"I'm your mother."
"I'm allowed to ask." He smiled despite himself.
"Yes, I'm eating enough."
Diana watched her son. He looked tired. The strain of the divorce was showing. "William," she said carefully, "I want you to know something. Whatever happens, whatever you hear about me in the press or from anyone, I need you to know that everything I do because I love you and Harry more than anything in this world." He looked up, confused by the sudden seriousness. "I know that, Mum." "No, I don't think you do. Not completely. There are going to be times when you think I'm making mistakes, when you think I'm causing problems or making things harder, and maybe I am. But it's all because I want a different world for you. A freer world. One where you can be yourself, not just a symbol." William shifted uncomfortably. He hated these conversations. He wanted to believe in the institution. "Mum, can we not—" "I know you don't want to hear it. But someday when you're older you might understand. And if something ever happens to me, if I'm not here to explain, nothing's going to happen to you," William said firmly, his voice cracking. Diana reached across and took his hand. "I hope you're right, darling. I truly do. But if I'm wrong, I want you to know that I tried. I tried to be brave for you." William pulled his hand away, standing up. "I should go. I have homework." "William." "I'll see you at dinner, Mum." He left quickly, and Diana sat alone with her tea growing cold. That night she wrote him a letter, a long letter, explaining everything she couldn't say to his face. She sealed it in an envelope, wrote, "For William, only if I'm gone" on the front, and placed it with her hidden documents. She never showed it to him. She never got the chance. October 31st, 1996, 7:45 p.m., Battersea Park. The meeting was his idea. He'd sent word through a carefully orchestrated series of contacts. Halloween night, Battersea Park, by the Peace Pagoda, 8 p.m., come in costume. Diana dressed as a witch, black dress, pointed hat, a mask that covered half her face. She walked through the park festival until she reached the pagoda. He was there, dressed as a plague doctor, the beaked mask rendering him anonymous. They stood side by side, watching the Thames. "It's ready," he said quietly. "The recording system, completely secure. When you're ready to make your statement, your real statement, we can do it." "What will happen to it?" "I'll keep it safe, hidden, and if anything happens to you, God forbid, I'll make sure it reaches the people who need to hear it. William, Harry, the public, eventually, when the time is right. I'm scared," she admitted, "not of dying, but of dying without them knowing the truth. Without William understanding why I couldn't just be quiet. Then tell him everything. We'll record it. I'll keep it safe until he's ready." "When?" "Whenever you're ready." Diana nodded. "Soon." The plague doctor walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Diana stood by the Peace Pagoda for a long time, thinking about peace and truth and the cost of both. November 12th, 1996, 11:47 p.m., Kensington Palace. And so we return to this moment, this phone call, this amber lamp. "I need to tell someone," Diana began. "If something happens to me, I need someone to know the truth. The whole truth." "Then tell me," the voice said. "I'm recording. It will be kept safe." Diana took a deep breath. "This is for William. If he's listening to this, it means I'm gone. And darling, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry you're hearing this instead of hearing it from me directly. But I need you to understand why I made the choices I made." Her voice caught, but she continued. "When I married your father in 1981, I was 19 years old. A child playing at being a princess. I didn't understand what I was walking into. The palace isn't just a place, it's a machine. A system designed to protect itself at all costs. And people like me were expendable." She paused. "I tried to be what they wanted. For years, I smiled for the cameras. I did the engagements. I produced the heir and the spare. God, I hate that phrase. I played the part, but it wasn't enough, because I couldn't keep silent about the things that mattered. I couldn't ignore suffering. I couldn't pretend everything was fine when it wasn't, and that made me dangerous." Diana stood pacing, the phone cord stretching. "They've been watching me, William. Listening to my phone calls, recording my conversations, monitoring my every move. Not just for protection, but for control. They have files on me, hours of recordings. They're building a case to destroy my credibility if I ever become too much of a threat. Maybe I am unstable. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I do make mistakes. But that doesn't make what they're doing right. It doesn't excuse the surveillance, the manipulation, the systematic campaign to make me seem crazy. She stopped at the window, looking out at the darkened gardens. I don't feel safe anymore, darling. Not in my own home. Not anywhere. There are days when I'm not sure if I'm going to make it through the year. And I know how that sounds, but it's the truth. And I need you to know that, because if something does happen to me, I need you to ask questions. I need you to not just accept the official story. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice remained steady. But William, more than anything, I need you to know that I loved you. That every difficult choice, every scandal, every headline, was driven by one simple truth. I wanted better for you. I wanted you to grow up in a world where you could be yourself, not just a crown, where you could marry for love, where you could show emotion without being called weak, where you could be human. I know I've made your life harder. The divorce, the interviews, it's been difficult. And I'm sorry, but I couldn't stay silent. Someone had to fight for change. Someone had to show there's another way. She wiped her eyes. You're going to be king someday, darling. And when that day comes, I hope you'll remember this. You have a choice. You can perpetuate the system, or you can change it. You can be the king they want you to be, or you can be the king the world needs. Choose kindness, William. Choose compassion. Choose truth even when it's hard. Don't let them turn you into someone who values the institution more than the people it's supposed to serve. And most of all, be a better parent than we were. Love your children without conditions. Protect them without suffocating them. Let them be themselves. Break the cycle. Diana's voice dropped to a whisper. I'm so proud of you, darling. You're strong and smart and so much better than this system deserves. Don't let them break that spirit. And tell Harry I'm sorry I couldn't protect him better. Tell him to stay wild, to keep that spark alive. The world needs people like Harry. She was crying openly now. If you're listening to this, it means I failed. It means I didn't survive long enough to tell you in person. And I'm sorry, but know that wherever I am, I'm watching over you. I'm proud of you. I love you more than anything. Be brave, my darling boy. Be kind, be true. And never let them tell you that love is a weakness. It's the only thing that matters. I love you, William. Always and forever. Remember that. Silence. I'll keep it safe, the man's voice said finally, thick with emotion. I swear. Thank you, Diana whispered. You're the bravest person I've ever known. History will remember that. Diana hung up gently. She sat in the amber light for a long time, feeling emptied out and strangely peaceful. She had said what needed to be said. Somewhere above her, William slept, unaware that his mother had just said goodbye. Diana finally turned off the lamp and went to bed. She slept better that night than she had in months. August 31st, 1997, 12:23 a.m., Paris. The Mercedes entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at high speed. Photographers in pursuit. There was a moment when everything still seemed salvageable. And then there wasn't. The impact. The scream of metal. The terrible silence. When first responders arrived, Diana was still conscious. She asked about Dodi. She didn't know yet that he was gone, that she would follow him within hours. At 4 a.m. London time, the call came to Balmoral. Charles received it in stunned silence. Then he woke his sons. William was 15. He stood in his pajamas, hearing the words, but not understanding them. His mother, gone, impossible, but she was gone. September 6th, 1997, London. The world watched as two boys walked behind their mother's coffin. William, tall and solemn. Harry, barely holding it together. The flowers, the tears. The silence broken only by horses' hooves and the gun carriage wheels. William's face was blank, controlled. But inside he was screaming. Inside he was asking questions no one could answer. Why did she feel so unsafe? What was she trying to tell us? Why didn't I listen? The funeral card in his hand read, "Mummy," in his own handwriting. Such a small word for so much loss. Earl Spencer gave a eulogy that was barely concealed fury. The Queen sat rigid, already calculating damage control. And William stood through it all, thinking, I should have known. I should have understood. Why didn't she tell me? But she had tried. And now it was too late. Or so he thought. March 17th, 2014, 3:42 p.m., Kensington Palace. William was 31 now, a husband and father. George was 8 months old, filling the palace with laughter. Kate was the steady presence Diana never had. William was finding his way, learning to balance duty and family, learning to be the kind of father his mother had hoped he would become. The letter arrived in the afternoon post. Plain brown envelope. No return address? His private secretary handed it to him. Screened. It's clean. Just a letter and a USB drive. William opened it alone. Your Royal Highness. I'm dying, cancer, perhaps 3 months left. I worked in intelligence for 30 years. MI5, Royal Protection. They left in 1996 because I couldn't stomach it anymore. Your mother asked me to keep something safe. She recorded a message in November 1996, 8 months before she died. She said to give it to you only if she wasn't there to tell you herself. I should have done this years ago. I was afraid. But I'm running out of time, and she deserves to have her voice heard. This is her message. No one else has heard it, I swear. Do with it what you will. But know that she loved you more than anything. She was brave. She was right about almost everything, and she was trying to protect you. I'm sorry I waited this long. I hope this brings you peace, even if it also brings pain. A friend who failed her. William read it 3 times. His hands shook. The USB drive had a piece of white tape with his mother's handwriting. For William, he stared at it. Did he want to know? Did he want to open this door? George's laughter drifted from the nursery below. Kate's voice singing softly. William locked the study door. He plugged in the USB drive. One file, Diana, William, 11/12/1996.mp3. His cursor hovered. He pressed play. Static, a click. Then her voice. This is for William. If he's listening to this, it means I'm gone. 17 years since he'd heard her voice. And now here she was, speaking to him from beyond death. He listened to all 11 minutes. Her describe the surveillance. Her confess her mistakes, her desperate love. Her beg him to choose differently, to break the cycle. Choose kindness, William. Be a better parent. Don't let them turn you cold. I'm so proud of you. I love you, William. Always and forever. When it ended, William sat in the darkening study and wept. Not controlled tears, but broken, gasping sobs of a son who had finally heard his mother's truth. 17. Years too late to tell her he understood. Too late to say sorry for the times he'd been too young to listen. He cried for the mother who fought so hard. He cried for the boy who hadn't understood. He cried for all the conversations they'd never have, all the moments she would miss. He cried until there were no tears left. Then slowly he composed himself. He made a decision. He would never release this recording publicly. It was too raw, too personal. The world didn't need to hear his mother's private anguish. But he would let it change him. He would let her words reshape how he approached his role, his family, his future. He would be the father she'd hoped he would be, the king the world needed. He would choose kindness. He would choose compassion. He would choose truth. He would remember. Today, William is 42 now. His children are growing up differently than he did. Not perfect, but different. He's made sure of that. He talks to them about their grandmother. Not the icon, but the real woman. The one who loved fiercely and fought hard and made mistakes and tried her best. He's more open with emotions than his father ever was. More willing to admit when he's struggling. More determined to modernize the institution slowly, carefully, but steadily. Those who know him well say something shifted in him after 2014, that he became softer somehow, more determined, more focused on what really matters. They don't know about the recording. Only Kate knows. And Harry, eventually, because some secrets are too big to keep from your brother. Harry wept when he heard it too. Wept for the mother who tried so hard to protect them both. The recording remains locked away. Maybe someday, decades from now, it will be released. Maybe his children will decide the world needs to hear it. Maybe they'll keep it private forever. But the message lives on, in how William raises his children. In the changes he pushes for, quietly and persistently. In the moments when he chooses compassion over protocol. In the end, Diana's lost phone call became exactly what she intended. A message of love. A message of warning. A message of hope. a message that her son was never meant to hear until the exact moment when he needed it most. And somewhere in a quiet cemetery, an old intelligence officer rests knowing he kept his promise. That Diana's voice reached her son, that the truth, however painful, finally came to light. Some secrets are meant to be buried, some are meant to be forgotten. But some secrets, the ones spoken in love, preserved in hope, delivered at the perfect moment, those secrets have the power to change everything. This was one of those secrets. So here we stand at the end of this story. We've walked together through Diana's final desperate attempt to reach her son across the barrier of death. We've felt her fear, her love, her fierce determination to be heard. What do you think she told William in those 11 minutes? What would you have said if you were in her place? How do you think this recording changed William, not just as a prince, but as a man, as a father, as a son, still grieving? Share your thoughts below. This is a sacred space where we honor Diana's memory together, where we keep asking the questions she wanted us to ask, where we refuse to let her story be buried. And if this story moved you, please subscribe. There are so many more untold stories waiting, stories about Diana's secret battles, her hidden fears, her quiet victories, stories the palace never wanted revealed. Together, we'll make sure her voice is never silenced. Together, we'll remember